Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on August 20th, 2021 at approximately 9:37 a.m. PST. Well, we've been running reasonably well, I think, anyway. The topic I want to look at today is this. When you're looking at changing the way things are happening around you, you minimize the negative, you maximize the positive. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can look at that. You can take a look at everything that's going on around you that's bad, and you can focus on that. Okay, and like I briefly mentioned yesterday, if you're at work and if you're in the hospitality industry or the people services industry at any rate, you can be having an absolutely miserable day where every customer, every client you have is an absolute pain in the neck to deal with. And then you get that one customer, that one person you deal with that smiles at you and says you're doing a good job. That one person can make all the difference in the world to your life. Okay, for that day. And many times that is the hard thing to hang on to, is find that one thing that you can hang on to that say this was a good day. Now, in my industry, I've been dealing with consulting people, personal, business, alien abduction, UFO technologies, uncommon situations. Okay, and there are many times when I sit there looking at it going, why are you asking this question? Now, before I go any further than that, the obvious answer is people ask a question because for whatever reason, they haven't got the answer. Now, people say there are no stupid questions, but there are really, really ill thought out ones. Okay, now, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, okay, and remember to hit the alert button to let you know when the next video comes out, because I do my best to get one out a day. Okay, and there's a lot of information I'm that I'm in the process of sharing with people. The fact of the matter is, it did not take society overnight to get to the state it's in. And it's going to take the efforts of all of you. Okay, not just you, myself included. It's going to take everybody's effort to shift things back and turn this into a better world for pretty much everybody. Now, I just mentioned this issue about questions that weren't well thought out. A number of years ago, I had a client that happened to be she was an aquatic fitness instructor, and she trained aquatic fitness instructors. So she's going through the program, and on the day of the final test, one of her students in an aquatic fitness instruction course asked this client of mine, when we take the final exam, do we have to get into the water? Now, you can think about that, but like I said, she is an aquatic fitness instructor, and he wanted to know whether or not they had to get into the water to take the exam. Now, this may not be classified as a stupid question, but it certainly classifies as one that was kind of ill thought out, given what he was getting into. Okay. Now, I have a bad habit of being sarcastic, in case you hadn't noticed. Many times somebody will ask me a question, and I will ask a very backwards question. I had a client phone me up one day, and her comment was, she goes, am I going to like the house I buy? And I stopped and I went, well, I gotta ask, why would you buy the house if you didn't like it? Okay, but I get these kinds of people, okay, and then I get the ones, and I get a lot of people like that. It is amazing how many people I get like that. Things like, when will my boyfriend call me next? I've blocked all these numbers, I've moved. When's he going to phone me next? And I'm thinking, like, how can you do that? How can you ask a question like that? I can't give an answer to that. But it's counterbalanced. I'll get a lot of those, and then I'll get this one little gem where they'll ask, like I had a chap phone me up, and he was having trouble with relationships. He could never hold one together. And he asked me why he couldn't hold a relationship together. Of course, I sat there and I looked at him and I says, well, let me ask you this. You know about a lot of your quirks, your foibles, your strengths and weaknesses. He goes, absolutely. I says, great. Now, if you had the opportunity to date somebody exactly like you, albeit in your case, a female, would you want to date them? And he looks at me and goes, God, no. And then he stops. He goes, wait a minute. I'm the problem. I went, yeah, pretty much. Right. So we talked about how he could turn his life around, which is what I'm doing here with the different tools I offer you. Okay, they are tools that I personally use when they apply to me. If they don't apply to me, well, for some reason, I don't use them. Okay, that's just the way it is. But when you take a look at, you get all these really, really odd questions, and then every now and then you get somebody that does that, and the lights come on, and it's that feeling that you actually made a connection, that you actually helped somebody get their feet on the ground. Okay, and the reason I say the other ones haven't really helped is because I get calls from these same people regularly, repeating the same question. And I'll go, well, you need to do this, but I don't want to do that. Well, here's the reality. It was said years ago, and I forget who I heard it from first, but the way it was phrased is insanity is best described as repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So I get a lot of people that do not change. What they do is they go, I don't want to change. I want the world to change for me, but I want to stay the same. It doesn't work that way. Okay. So you take a look at all those negative things and you can dwell on them. And I have made the mistake of dwelling on them on occasion and bottling the stress. Side effect of that, I ended up with a stroke. Okay. Now, you can do that if you'd like, but I'd recommend against it. Heart attacks are painful, strokes are a royal pain. It takes a lot longer to recover from a stroke than it does for a heart attack, at least in my experience. But if you take a look at the negative things and you put them aside and you go, I'm not looking at that. I can look at the dump and I can see all this garbage and I can focus on that if I choose, because there's a lot of it. Or I can look at this one little flower and go, that's gorgeous. And I can focus on that and how that makes me feel. Okay, and I do strongly recommend that you do that. You take the negative, push it aside. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Okay, garbage and, silly things happen all the time. But it does mean that just like if you're flipping through the channels and you're spotting commercial after commercial or a show you don't like, that you don't desire to see, you flick past it, you carry on. Until you find that one channel that you want to focus on. And it's that channel that you desire to focus on that holds your attention because it's something that made you feel better. Okay. Now, I do know some people, they'll be walking along, they'll focus on everything, and all of a sudden, like, oh, shiny, and away they go. Right. That might be a little flighty on occasion, but it does work on occasion. It does work for some people. Now, to put that in perspective, if you're raising kids, if you're running a business, it doesn't matter. It boils down to the same thing in this case. When somebody steps out of line, when they do something they're not supposed to, take them aside. Okay, in the case of a child, instead of standing up above them, okay, unless you have no choice, as in they're just plain too short and you don't have the ability to get down, try and get down to their level. Okay, but you take them aside, out of sight of everybody. You sit down, explain what they did wrong, tell them why it's wrong, and send them back out to have a day. Okay, if they're doing something really well, absolutely, in public, tell them they're doing well. Same thing applies when you're running a business. I watched it done one day really, really well. Okay, I come into this restaurant, and I don't know what the staff member did. I have no idea what the staff member did, but the staff member did something, and the boss collected her up, took her into the office, right, was only back there for 2 or 3 minutes, and came back out, right? She had a reasonable, she wasn't in tears. So he obviously went in, it was only 2 or 3 minutes, went in, talked to her, she came back out, went back to work. That same day, I got up to the counter that day, and I got talking to the manager, because he was working the till, and I complimented him on the way his staff was working. He didn't bother taking anybody in the background. He didn't bother with any of it. He just stopped right there, turned around and called across the entire kitchen, okay, in front of all of the customers that were in the store. And he called out to them. He says, "Well done, we just got a compliment." He says, "I can't do this without you. Keep up the great work." This is what I mean by maximizing the positive. If you're running a restaurant and your waitress does something silly, okay, or that you consider wrong, take them in back, away from the rest of the staff, away from the customers. Tell them what they did wrong. Tell them what's expected. Straighten it out, and send them back out to work. Don't make them feel like garbage, because let's face it, your waitresses are your front line. In the case of a restaurant, the waitress is your front line. Well, your hostess really is, but if you've got one. If you've got a phone company, like you've got receptionists on the phone, they're your front line. Treat them in a way that they feel respected, even when they do something wrong. Okay, now this does not mean pat them on the back and go, "Way to go, you did something wrong." Okay, but you minimize it. Okay, take them out of the public view. If you're giving them positive reinforcement, absolutely let everybody that can hear, let them know. It's not a case of yell out and make it a big thing. It's just a case of don't hide it from the public. Okay, because I'll tell you, there's nothing that makes people feel better than being known for doing something right. Give them a pat on the back. Okay, just remember, each person is an individual. Some people will handle public acknowledgement well. Others get really edgy about it. So know who your staff is. Okay. Now, the other thing about all that is by doing that, not only does it encourage the staff, which means they will respond better. Your kids will behave more effectively. Okay, which may well keep them out of trouble. It won't guarantee it, because rest assured, kids will do some pretty silly things pushing their boundaries. That's part of the issue of growing up. It's what you parents signed up for. Okay. I like the way it was put one day for me. A parent is not the child's friend. A parent is the parent. Yes, it's nice to get along with your kids, but sometimes the parents have to step up and say, "This isn't going to work for you." Now, I heard one told just the other day, where a parent pulled an absolutely a common thing, but was completely off kilter. Okay, and here's the situation. I know there's some of you out there that are listening to this, and you've either gone through this yourself, or you know somebody that has. In this particular instance, okay, the person had done something, was doing something, or was struggling with something that was a little difficult, and the parent looked at them and goes, "Look, I'm older than you. I've been around the block a couple of times. I know what you're going through." Now, here's where it all fell apart. The person in question that was having trouble coping was absolutely 100% blind. The parent was not. This said, the parent has not a clue what the specifics are that the person was going through. Okay, it's like when you're talking to somebody and they're trying to tell you, "Don't drink." I know what it's like. I know how hard it is. If that person saying that has never drank, okay, then frankly, they don't know what an alcoholic is going through. Okay. Sad to say, in my case, I've done both heavy alcohol and heavy drugs. I don't do either, but do I know what they go through? Certainly. On the plus side, I cannot tell somebody from practical experience what it feels like to be pulled over for a speeding infraction, or for what it feels like to go into court to deal with a speeding ticket. Because much as I've been pulled over for speeding, okay, and, much as I've been pulled over for it, I've luckily never been charged. That does not mean I wasn't speeding. Don't ask me how I got around it. I don't know. But I've come away with verbal warnings. And here's the thing. One of the key factors, I think, and it's just a suspicion on my part, is when I get pulled over by the police or caught in a roadblock or whatever, I am I am as compliant as I can be. Okay, and I'm very polite to them. They've got a difficult job in the first place, right? So maybe it's just a question of I've treated them decently, didn't make any bones about it. It's like, okay, that's what I did wrong. I understand that. And here's why. In one case in particular, I simply missed the speed sign, and I went sailing past the thing at just about double the speed limit. Actually, a little over double the speed limit. And I managed to luck out, and the officer in question, he just simply gave me a verbal warning, acknowledged where the problem was with the sign, and the next time coming through town, I got pulled over again. And I'm like, what's up? He says, absolutely nothing. He said, I just recognized your vehicle and wanted to thank you for slowing down. I'm like, okay, thank you very much. Have a good day. But again, he pulled me over. The second time he pulled me over, now I could have looked at that and gone, now I'm getting pulled over, and what is this? He's interfering with my day, and I could have gone off on a rant like a whole pile of people did. Instead, I stopped. I talked to him politely, and he talked to me politely. We had a good exchange, a little bit of a giggle over the last time that I went through the city, through the town, right? And we both carried on. Both of us very relaxed, had a great rest of the trip home. Needless to say, I've always watched going through that particular town. I've always watched for speed signs coming in. When something negative happens, one of the best things that I've discovered is if you've had a bad experience, find something about it that was positive. Okay, for instance, I went into one restaurant and I was absolutely disgusted by the restaurant itself. But I'd been met at the door by a greeter. Okay, really congenial greeter, absolutely wonderful. Okay, and the waiter that came to deal with the small part of my meal, it was a smorgasbord, but very professional, very congenial. The reason I was disgusted with the restaurant is because I watched the dishes come out. They brought out a stack of new plates out of the dishwasher. I mean, it was a buffet. So of course you're getting this happening all the time. Well, he put down the plates, and I was just getting to the line. So he put them down. I grabbed one off the top of the stack. Now these were still hot to the touch. Okay. And I picked the plate up, and there was food caked on the bottom of it. It's like the guy had literally just taken a stack of plates that had come in and stacked them in the dishwasher, stuffed them through, and brought them back out. Now, to say the least, I was not happy. Okay, so when I grabbed hold of it, it caught me off guard, and I did. I dropped the plate on the counter. And my voice carries. It may not seem like it here, but it really does. Okay, so I dropped the plate on the counter, and I was not in a good mood. And I did. I literally I called to the person, I didn't call anybody in particular. I just barked out. I says, what the is going on? What is this kind of garbage? Right. And I walked out of the restaurant. Subsequently the restaurant ended up closing. Okay. Wasn't my doing, I don't think. but I was, to say the least, unimpressed. Okay, because of the fact that now I could have focused on that was the worst thing that could have happened, but the fact was that the host, the host and the waiter that had come to deal with me initially were really good. They were really top-notch people, and that's what I decided to hang on to, was that positive side of it. Did I ever go back to that particular restaurant again? No. Okay, but in all fairness, at the time, you got to realize I had also spent 6.5 years as a dishwasher, 24 years in restaurants, and of course, to make matters worse, my uncle was a health inspector. So the whole thing just absolutely set me off as far as whether I'd go back there again. Right. Did I still keep going to restaurants? Absolutely. Do I still treat people decently? Certainly. But when you take a look at a negative issue, find something positive about the experience. Now, the only positive thing I could come out of that particular experience was that the host and the waiter were really good people. Okay, they were really nice. And admittedly, the table that we sat down at was a really good table. Like, it was really clean. It was well sorted around. So I looked at that and went, yeah, it's a nice setup. But did I ever go back? No. And that had to do with the state that the dishes were coming out. And of course with my own background. Now, when you have, like, for instance, if you run into a problem, let's say you end up in a traffic accident, it's really hard to find something positive out of that. I got rear-ended one day and shoved all the way across the intersection. Okay, now you'd think, how do you find something positive out of that? I mean, my car was a total write-off. I walked away without a bruise. Right. But understand, I was in a GLC, which is it was a little 3-door hatchback. I got hit by a Caprice. Okay, which is I believe it was an Oldsmobile, which tells you right there, it was built like a freight train. He rear-ended me and folded my back end. I didn't even come out of it with whiplash because I saw him coming. Now, where's the positive thing? Well, of course, I got stopped, and he came up to see if I was okay, and I'm shook my head a little, and yeah, I'm fine, but I think my car's a little shorter, which, okay, it was a subcompact already. It didn't really matter the size, but I come out of it, and my first thought was, I lived through it. I can carry on with my day, albeit a little bit sidetracked. Okay, find something positive. People tell you as you get older, your eyesight's going to fail, your ears are going to fail, you're going to have all these other things that are going to fail. Well, you can get depressed about that, or you can do like I did and go, I'm going to get older. That is true. There is not a thing you can do about it. You will get older. Every single person, every single entity in existence has that complication. We all get older. And sooner or later, according to the lifespan of whatever species you are, you will eventually die. Likelihood. Okay. Now, that's not guaranteed, but there are mitigating circumstances, which one day I will get to. But take a look at it, and the first rule of thumb, when you wake up in the morning, if you wake up in the morning, that's a good start. If you're not pushing daisies when you wake up, or if you're not knocking on the inside of a coffin, the odds are you're going to have a better day than you could have had. Okay, I know when I woke up in the morning and found out I had a stroke, it annoyed me. Falling out of bed didn't matter much. I'd done that before. In fact, I couldn't get back up. That was the problem. Okay, but at that point, now, of course, the funny part there is you can look at it and go, and you can sit there and go, well, a stroke is nothing to look at and say it was good. It was great news, because that stroke, yes, it had me wake up, end up in the hospital, unable to move and unable to speak. They called it a minor stroke. I'm thinking, not able to walk, not able to speak, it's pretty serious. But the good thing was, it made me realize that, number one, I had to slow my stress level down. So I set about looking at exactly what I was going through. Net result, I am in better shape now than I was 10 years ago. I only had the stroke 2 years ago. Okay, but I did figure out that I've got to change my stress levels, I've got to change my diet, I've got to bring things down into balance. Net result, the stroke itself, I call it a stroke of luck at this point. Was it a stroke? Was it a pain in the neck? Absolutely. However, am I going to let that stop me from living? Probably not, considering the doctor keeps saying, you got to be on this medication, you got to be on that medication. I'm like, I'll use the medication until I run out. I'm not getting a refill because it's only a crutch. Now, this is not necessarily a wise move. Okay, doctors are still upset that I refuse to go in and get things done. On the other hand, by changing my diet, by changing my exercise, and keeping my mind set on the idea I already have healed. Okay, by staying focused on that and doing rational changes that have been proven effective for other people, and in this case, they've been proven effective for me as well. Okay, by doing that, I focus on the fact, yes, I had a stroke, yes, I've had a number of heart attacks. I'm still breathing. Okay, I'm still able to walk. Do I have a cane? Absolutely, but I've had a cane since I was 12, so it's kind of like having an extra leg that you know about. But I took a look at that stroke and I went, yeah, it was a royal annoyance. And I've still got things that I haven't taken the time to correct. Do I know how to correct them? Yes. But remember what I mentioned about me being a professional procrastinator. You focus on what is working, on what makes you feel better. The fact that I can sit down, that I can take these off and put them down and read what I'm looking at over here, given the printing is a little larger than normal, that it makes me quite content. Okay, I used to have a problem. I'm only sitting like an arm's reach from my monitor. Now, that may seem like a real short distance, but at this distance, I never could see the whites of anybody's eyes. I literally had to be within 6 inches in order to see that they had white, the white around the eye. Sitting arm's length away on a low-grade monitor, I can see the fact that I can see the whites in the eyes. I can see where the pupil is, which is phenomenally better than what it used to be, because I used to have glasses like this. Now, I could have taken the idea, well, I still have glasses like this, by the way. I used to not be able to see the glasses sitting that close. I couldn't physically see them. Now, the funny thing is, when I took the trailer hitch to my eye, okay, which is what damaged my eyesight in the first place, I could have gone, woe is me, I'm going to be blind forever. Instead, what I did was went, okay, this is annoying. I am going to get my eyesight back. Don't know how yet, but I'm not giving up on this. I didn't like glasses from the get-go, so I used them because I required them. I'm getting to the point now where I'm driving less, which means I require the glasses less. I still require them for writing. Okay, or more to the point, for working on the computer. Because the computer, the printing on it, is too small at too far a distance. Okay, when I said I've got 20/20 eyesight for reading, this means if I take a sheet of paper that's got writing on it, and I hold it right there, same distance that I used to have the glasses. I put my glasses right there, I couldn't see them. Right? Take this sheet of paper with writing, I can hold it right there and read it perfectly. I don't have a problem with it. And that is the way my life is going. I've decided I'm not happy with the way my health is. I'm improving it. They'll tell you the same thing. As you get older, your hearing will fail, your eyesight will fail, your coordination will fail, etc., etc., and you'll put on all kinds of excess weight. What they don't tell you is that there are ways around that. Now, I take a look at all those negative things that you're told, and I hang on to the few that I came across that were really beneficial. Okay, gentleman by the name of Bates came up with a method of repairing eyesight without glasses. The book is literally called The Bates Method to Better Eyesight Without Glasses. And the techniques in it work. I know this because I've used them. Okay. Somewhere in my files, I've got the ISBN number for that particular book. Okay, so I took that one person that said this is possible, and I took everybody else that said as you get older, your eyesight is going to fail. And I hung on to that one little positive thing and stayed focused on it. Okay, net result, my eyesight is healing. I am now lighter than I was 10 years ago. I've dropped like 40, probably close to 45 pounds now, and I'm not finished. I've got a goal in mind, and that's what I'm aiming for. The doctors figure by the medical standards up here, apparently at 5'8", which is what I am, I should be about 145, 150 pounds. Well, that's a cute thought. If you take a look at me, just what you can see. Okay, picture dropping 50 pounds off of that. Okay, now does that sound like I'd be healthy at that weight? I'm thinking no. However, the doctors do a phenomenal job. The diabetic doctors, the ones that deal with diabetic dietitians, okay, they've laid out different programs for helping people cope with diabetes, are bang on the money. They have done a phenomenal job, and you should, absolutely talk to them if you're having trouble with dropping weight, even if you're not diabetic. Go and talk to a dietitian that works on diabetic programs, because their methods work. Okay, any support group that works, I don't care what it is, if it's working, if it helps, follow it. The thing to keep in mind is make certain that anybody that you're dealing with, make certain that if they're giving you tools to work with, that they themselves are using them if they apply to them. Okay, one of the best surprises that I got, it was an absolute shock to me, with a client that I had. This woman, unfortunately, she'd been raped. She'd already gone to the doctor, been tested the whole 9 yards. But the first person she phoned, of all bizarre things in my eyes, and I'm still trying to figure out exactly why. I'd never talked to this woman before, but when she phoned the line I was working for, she asked to speak to a male. I was the lucky one that happened to get the call. And I was the first person she spoke to, aside from the doctors, the doctors and the police, after she had gotten raped. And the thing that surprised me was that she asked to talk to a male. I'm not entirely certain why. Quite frankly, if you've got any ideas, drop me a note below. Okay, I'd love to hear different theories on why she would want to talk to a male. Okay, given what had just happened. But by the time I got off the phone, and this was kind of a surprise, do understand, I've got my own ideas of what should happen to people that perpetrate that kind of behavior. But by the time she got off the phone, she was laughing, not hysterically, but at least we were getting the occasional giggle out of her. She'd come up to a point where she could actually at least breathe functionally. Okay. And it's that kind of thing that I look at, where I'm able to reach some people that really desperately require assistance. The ones that tell me, they phone me up. Now understand, many psychic lines, especially at the time, were charging $3.50 a minute. And I get these calls regularly. I'm having financial difficulties. What should I do? Well, my first comment, quite literally, and I used to get in touch with the boss, in trouble with the boss, is I go, well, number one, you go down to your bank, talk to the financial advisor at the bank. It's free. That's what they're paid for. And quit phoning companies that charge you $3.50 a minute to talk to somebody about your finances being in trouble. Okay, there's a lot of people that do that. It's amazing. But when you run into things, I get a lot of that. But like I said, that one woman I just talked about, that waiter that was dealing with me in the restaurant, you look at the positive experiences. Now, I mentioned my trip at one point into the airport, and I watched this woman. She was having a terrible time in baggage. Okay, I've covered that before. I'm not going to. Okay, but I will tell you that when you're dealing... Oh, we went way over. That being said, told you I get rambling on occasion. Anyway, I'm going to cut this off here, and I will be back tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.